because you're going to end up spending a whole lot more.
When you first visited,
Yeah, there's a reason the price is, so cheap for something like this.
what other factors do you believe?
Well, again, I'm an engineer. Number one is the quality. I've lived in some high-rise apartments in the city.
What stood out to you?
More in something that is poorly built,
Clients or other people who are interested to invest
where you immediately step in and you can say,
also should focus on other than pricing.
here with Kefita, you're investing in quality.
So how was it being a foreign investor in Ethiopia?
Ethiopia is, like we said, it's not always the easiest place to do business.
When you first visited Kefita,
Look at things that have already had some level of development.
what stood out to you?
You can see that, I don't hear so much sound from the outside. You're not hearing the wind blasting against.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Before we dive into our topic on real estate, could you please tell us about yourself and what makes you end up in Ethiopia?
Yeah, so my name's Chris Turnbull Grimes, and so my background is in engineering. And I first moved to Ethiopia because I was interested in a few things. The first is investing in rural water supply. So my company does investments in town utilities and rural communities to get water into homes. But then what we also do is building construction kind of technology services. So helping contractors make buildings more efficient, whether it's in labor costs or materials and things like that. So those two things combined really kind of brought me here and drove me here back in 2015.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what attracted you to come to Ethiopia?
It's a number of things. I mean, the economy is kind of rapidly developing, and for the work that we want to do, there wasn't a whole lot of competition. So we could kind of come in, take our time. I didn't need to immediately jump into something that, how do you say it, was the most efficient and profitable. We could figure things out in the process for our water supply sort of business. But then what you can see is because the economy is rapidly developing, there are a lot of opportunities coming up where there are, say, leapfrog technologies that we may not have had when I was growing up, when I was in the US and things like that. And so it became a really kind of fascinating place, but also the fact that it's just such a large country, there's so much opportunity here as well. It's not always going to be the easiest place, but that's okay. If it was easy, somebody already would have done it.
Yes, true. Yeah. So let's go back to 2015. Yeah. So how was it being a foreign investor in Ethiopia back then?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, it's not always easy, right? And it's still going to have the difficulties. But, if you're patient, if you have the right industry that you're trying to be in, if I'm an investor, or if I'm recommending to investors, I would say look at things that have already had some level of development in the country because the market's been figured out to a certain extent, the regulations have been figured out, but also look at things that have a good margin, right? Because you're coming in and it takes time, it takes patience, make sure that it's worthwhile for the investment. And really what that is start looking at things with a good margin, but then also you have to have a local partner. Ethiopia is a very different place to invest than Europe or the Middle East or the US. And so make sure that you have somebody that you trust and somebody who knows the game, right? Knows how things work here. Those would be the biggest recommendations I would have for somebody if I was going back and looking at that. But I've been fortunate enough that, I'm still here, right? It can be difficult, but it's still worth it every single day.
I think you explained it very well.
Yeah.
So now let's dive into the investment.
Yeah.
So when you first visited Kefita, what stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, number one is the quality, right? I've lived in enough poorly built places, and not to say that they're going to fall apart or anything like that, but you can go to a place and immediately tell from the doors if it's been built well. The doors here and windows are sealed well. Again, I'm an engineer, so these are the things that I'm noticing, right? But you can see that, like, I don't hear so much sound from the outside. You're not hearing the wind blasting against, your windows or things like that. You're not getting drafts in here. And I've lived in some high-rise apartments in the city where you immediately step in and you can say, yeah, there's a reason the price is, so cheap for something like this. Mm-hmm. And here with Kefita, you're investing in the quality. That's number one. You can see it in the splashbacks behind your sinks. You can see it in the bathroom construction, or even the furniture that's been installed, the cabinetry and things like that in here. Number one, that's what I would say, because you're going to end up spending a whole lot more in something that is poorly built, because you're going to have to constantly fix it. You're going to have to constantly deal with the frustration and the headaches of repainting or getting things the way that you want it. And then if it hasn't been built right, you're just doing it that much more often. And here, you step in and it's good to go.
Do you think this explanations or the way that you see Kefita when you plan to invest, does it also affect that you are in this profession, in the engineering, in the construction? Because I believe in my trend as a sales for many clients, they usually focus on price. And for you, when you were my client and we have had so many back and forth conversation in the sales process, so you were more of focused on the construction and other aspects of the building that are even comparable measured when it comes to pricing as well.
Right.
So what other factors do you think, my first question is, do you think it's because you were in the profession, and what other factors do you believe clients or other people who are interested to invest also should focus on other than pricing?
Yeah, I mean, it can be hard when you haven't had the experience of living in places that are poorly built, right? And going back to the quality issue, I know how much time and frustration and lack of peace of mind that I've had to have when maybe a contractor hasn't sealed the roof right, and so the walls are getting mold in them and things like that. You don't want to live in a place like that. You end up having to spend time fixing things, bringing people into your space, not having it serve as your kind of home, right? Okay. And the value is, I'm sure that somebody has found a way to put a monetary value towards having peace of mind at home, right? I don't know what that number might be, but you end up spending so much of your life on things that are, how do you say it? Like things that are stress inducing, right? Mm-hmm. Things that are frustrating, things that don't allow you to thrive, yes. Right? Mm-hmm. And you can feel that when you're in a space that feels like home, that you can thrive, right? You don't have to worry about things. You're worrying about things all throughout the rest of your day, right? Ethiopia is, like we said, it's not always the easiest place to do business. And again, that's totally fine. But when you come home, have a place that you can relax, that can be your castle, that allows you to kind of come in and conquer the next day, right? True. And that's what we see from here. Right? I would say for me, it's more than anything, it's quality and having that history of knowing what it's like to deal with bad quality.
True. So when it comes to the other factors that were important when selling for a foreigner a property in Ethiopia was the law that doesn't allow foreigners to invest under their own name. So there were specific options that you have, which was having a partner who is in Ethiopian origin who can do that, but not under your own name. So in your case, we used, we was involved your wife, Melat, who's also a designer, the owner of Dolmel. Right. And So now this law has come to a new reform where Ethiopia is allowing foreign investors to invest on properties in Ethiopia. So how do you see that this new law?
I mean, I think it's wonderful, and it will certainly kind of spur a whole lot more development in the city. A lot of push, and again, I know I'm focusing on quality so much, but I think it also will spur a push on quality construction. And I really see it as a great opportunity for investment just generally in the city, because this is, Addis Ababa has grown so much in the last
Yes.
decade. We're pushing 10 million people, maybe more. And this is also just an economic hub of the region. And so there's a large demand to be here. So what ends up happening is that housing and property in the city become a very good kind of way to hold your value, right? The value of these properties is going to continue to go up over time, as we have seen in the last decade as well. But it's still going to, because the city is getting more and more dense and there's more and more demand, and as it becomes easier to invest and run a business here, people will want to be here. So there is a really high value for me in knowing that the places that I'm going to invest in, and especially in Kefita, is going to retain its value, not just retain its value, but grow in value.
Yeah.
And that gives me a whole lot more security just for the future. And I can recommend to anyone that if you have the means to do it, absolutely do it. I think one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't invest in the city earlier. I'm glad that the investment came when it did, but I wish I had even started my investments earlier.
Yeah, and I believe now, even for foreign investors who are looking to invest in Ethiopia, it makes the infrastructure more open,
Yeah.
which was a bit difficult back if we look back to a couple of years before.
Yeah.
So finally, what makes Ethiopia an interesting place for you? This is
Yeah, I mean, for me, first of all, there's always problems to solve, right? I am just by my nature a problem solver, and so there's always something interesting to build, rack your brain about, in a good way or a bad way. I think it's going to continue to grow, but for me, one of the biggest draws here is history. This is a country with just such amazing and fairly well documented history. We look at this place, and it's been mentioned since before biblical times even. It's been mentioned from the Greeks. It's been mentioned in the Old Testament, and there's such this strong sense of community and history that's been built here, and it's just a fascinating intersection of so many worlds, and that's part of the thing that drove me here. But where people see that identity going, in the next 10, 20, 30, 100 years is fascinating and beautiful. And I like to see how the kind of Ethiopian identity continues to evolve while still holding on to all of the things that brought us here at that time. We look at the nikasat of our grandparents, right? If I may,
Yes.
give a little plug, right? These are these are inspired by my wife's, grandmother's nikasat, right? And that we see that inspiration through time, but also that connection to our past, because we have to remember life is hard, and that as we see ourselves as part of this kind of amazing and beautiful history, it allows us to look at the world with more open eyes and give us that ability to thrive.
Thank you very much, Chris, for sharing your experience with us and for your time to have this time with us.
በጣም ደስ ብሎኛል። አመሰግናለሁ።
Thank you.